You won't you be my neighbor? You remember that program, right?
Mr. Rogers?
Oh, Mr. Rogers, won't you be my neighbor? We look at, let's start off with that verse of scripture here. It said, a certain lawyer stood up to test him, saying, Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus said to him, what is written in the law? How do you read it? And he replied, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, with all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. And your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said, you have answered correctly. Do this habitually or continually, and you will live. But he was wishing to justify and vindicate himself. Asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? This guy, his head knowledge didn't quite penetrate to his heart, did it? He knew, but he just didn't penetrate. He knew his neighbors were. What do you think about when you think about your neighbors? Think about the crazy cat lady, Lizzie. Think about the old man just sits on his porch and just watching the world go by. And how about, or you got the one neighbor that likes to have his music at concert hall pitch? We've all had neighbors like that, haven't we? At one point in our life, we've had neighbors. Really wonderful neighbors, though. We had some real interesting ones. We had the one guy, I remember when we lived down the hill in Highland. We lived in a condominium. We had one guy, I think had his music up so loud you could hear the pictures rattling on our wall. I go to ask him to turn it down. I'm having to pound on the door. He's wearing earplugs. I go, it'd be a whole lot easier to just turn the music down. You wouldn't have to wear the earplugs. So you get people like that at times. But, it takes all kinds of people to make this the interesting world it is. Can you imagine how boring it would be if we just lived in a world where everybody in our neighborhood was the same, exact same type of personality and all that? It'd be pretty boring, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the difference in our personalities that make this who we are. I grew up in a neighborhood where we knew everybody. We all knew our neighbors. I think a lot of us in the older generation have. I remember when we first moved up here, there's a place down on Hinckley Road. We first moved in up here. These people wanted to get to know their neighbor. Of course, it was just us and somebody else out there too. One other family, because we're out in the middle of about a 300-acre ranch that we're renting out of. This lady come up, I believe her name was Wanda, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, she came up, iced tea and some snacks while we were moving in. I think even her son kind of helped us move stuff too, her husband. That was the neighbor thing to do. I attempt to do that with people as much as I can. Sometimes it's not that easy.
No. Not easy.
But it's always a good thing to you let people know you're there. Hey, we try to introduce ourselves as neighbors. Try to introduce ourselves to neighbors. Hey, my name is Rod. This is my wife, Joanna. Welcome to the neighborhood. You need help? Hey, we're here. You know, that brings us to Galatians 5:14. I'm going to read this part out. I got it from an Amplified Bible, so this is going to be kind of interesting. In Galatians 5:14, it says, for the whole law, which in other words concerning human relationships, is fulfilled in one precept. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. You know, that means you're to have an unselfish concern for your neighbor, for others, actually, for anyone in this area. And do things for their benefit. Not for yours, not what you can get out of it. Wait, how can I help this person? Now I got this sermon I'm about to do, I got it from watching Reel with Diego Mesa. And it's kind of a condensed version. I hope I do it justice. Because if he watches this on YouTube, I'm afraid I'm going to get a bad comment. But I'm just going to go into maybe one thing. He's talked about, I'm going to do a little quiz here for a couple people in there. These people and their famous neighbors, like Ricky and Lucy Ricardo. Now most of us know that show, right?
Brad and Ethel.
Yep. Brad and Ethel Mertz. How about, has anybody ever watched the show Home Improvement? How about Tim the Toolman Taylor? Who was his neighbor?
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson. You really never seen him though. You always see the top of his head over the fence. You never really seen his face. Fred and Barney, or how about Fred and Wilma Flintstone? How about Barney and
Anybody watched any television? Am I the only one?
I think we have. I don't think we might be the ones who watch television around here. But anyways, they weren't the main character in the story, but they were very important to that people that were in that main story. If you look at them, where they had their neighbors that come up there. That neighbor is a very important part. Like what Diego used to say, they did life with them. They're an integral part of their life. And neighbors, we got all kinds of neighbors, don't we? We got them all over out here. As a church, we ought to be a good neighbor, right? Shouldn't we be very neighborly to them? Somebody doesn't get too loud.
Yes.
No, Mom's saying no. So, okay. Boy, don't you love technical problems?
Well, the feedback was harder than your voice.
Huh?
The feedback
Oh,
was
it was?
harder.
Okay. So I don't have a monitor up here, so I can't really hear what it sounds like. All I'm hearing is seeing people doing this number. So, okay, I think it's a little on the loud side. Now, I'm going to go through four kinds of neighbors, or what he called 4 quadrants. You have 4 kinds of neighbors here. First is going to be your next door neighbors. You know, it doesn't really matter where you live. You can live in a subdivision, apartments, or trailer park, or out in the middle of nowhere like we do. We got a couple of neighbors around us. Not really right. We got one kind of, well, we got a vacant lot and another neighbor. And usually a lot of coyotes for neighbors too. It's kind of hard to be neighborly with those things. You know, we all have that next door neighbor, you know. I knew my neighbors by name. How many of you can still remember our neighbors by their names that we grew up with? Anybody?
Yep.
Yeah, you remember a lot of your neighbors by name?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember a lot of mine. We were all like, almost like one family in a sense. We all looked out after each other's homes. You know, my parents even had the phone numbers of my friends that were in that neighborhood in case they were looking for me. You know, we didn't have a cell phones back then, where they called me on the kids on the cell phone. No. They hollered, and if you didn't get there in time, you better be prepared for what's coming up. But they knew they didn't see me out there playing. They would call, like, a friend of mine, Joe, who lived down the street. Him and I a lot of times would be playing his house. There's another Joe that lived kind of down at the end. And there was also Russell that lived next door. Wayne that lived on the other side. I mean, so he knew he'd start calling numbers. Okay, hey, your mom and dad want you home. Oh, okay. Well, they'll ask, hey, is RPC over here and have dinner here? I guess, you know, so that as long as our neighbors are good at watching out after each other. There's times that it was raining and one of the neighbors going to be late coming home. She asked my mom, hey, can the kids see over there for maybe a couple hours? Yeah, sure. And they'd do the same thing with us if I need, if the house is going to be locked up. But I was what they considered a latchkey kid at that time. A lot of times they don't do that too much anymore. But, after I got home from school, I'd go in there, go in the house, do my homework. So they thought. I really wasn't a very good student, I can tell you that much. But we looked at each other. We knew, we welcomed our neighbors, didn't we? What's it like nowadays for people? The dog barks, you drag your gun out from your desk, wondering who's at the door. They're going to be kicking it down. People nowadays they're not as welcoming, are they? With their next door neighbor, and somebody moves in, you kind of like, I don't really worry about them. You see that they're kind of weird. Well, guess what? We're kind of weird to them, aren't we? We need to take that time to learn our next door neighbor. Go out and meet them. Next one is our co-workers. They're neighbors. I mean, they don't live right next to you, but hey, they're your neighbors at work. I got a neighbor, I actually got several neighbors at work that they'll come up, I have Tim who works as one of the foremen. I've also got Andy. There's also Brandon, he's another one. And there's another neighbor over there, works on the operating side, Joe. His name's Joe, and we've got another one. Comes up we call her Catherine. She works up there. Got quite a few of them, Bill. But yeah, we get to kind of know their name because I'm kind of in confined quarters with them. But there's other places I've worked in the shops, there's another guy drove the forklift all the time. He drove our forklift. He's a lot of us did it now, but I mean we have crane operators now. They switched those over. But I remember when I worked down there was Shane. He was one of our crane operators. I kind of knew him by name, but where I work at, that place is like a big family. We're almost like a family. It kind of blew Joanna's mind when we first. I needed help, and we had car problems. I called up one of the foremen. They come up, they looked after us like family. He came over. Actually, I was just wondering about getting something. He came over there to help me. Take me over to get a battery for a car that went out on us. And she just couldn't, she couldn't wrap her head around the idea of you know, being neighborly like that for one of my work neighbors, from Steve. He retired now, but you know, that's how we have those type of things. Okay. You know, I mean, when you look at your coworkers, you spend a 30-year life with these people, don't you? You figure 8 hours that you spent with them, that's about a 30-year life you're spending. You got your hobby neighbors. You're probably trying to figure out what that is, right? Everybody trying to figure out what that is? Now these are the people you share an interest with. You go to the gym. You know, I was in a bowling league, so there was times I got to learn people's names. I probably forgotten now since it's been so long since I did a bowling league. But I remember one was a social worker. You know, the other people that were just retired that were in that league. But you know, those people that shared the interest, you know, you got different clubs that you're in. Everybody's involved in different clubs. I mean, Janice has got her hobby neighbors with the senior center. And also, you know, her gym that she goes to. I mean, all you probably go to some sort of social event other than here at church, right? I mean, you go to different places, and that's your neighbors. You got your neighbor there. Now you got your church neighbors here. You got to say hello. Look at each other and say hello, neighbor.
Hello, neighbor.
Won't you be hello, neighbor? Got to put on a nice cardigan sweater. Can you say crazy? I knew you could. You know, you find them in the pews, the chairs next to you. Hey, you'll see them at we have Bible studies. Any church events we got going on here. Those are our church neighbors. You know, I would love to see these people out here become some of our church neighbors in here, wouldn't you? I would like to get our neighborhood to grow. That is for us to do. That is our job, to get this neighborhood to grow. We got to come in and bring in people. Introduce new people to our neighborhood. It's this thing. I'm blocking everybody, aren't I?
Yeah.
See,
Okay. I just happened to notice that. It's caught it out of the corner of my eye. It's kind of sitting weird. You know, we got, but as a neighbor here in Grandview, a neighbor to all this area here, like this coming up on the 22nd, when we have our community barbecue, that is going to be like a nice little outreach to our neighborhood, inviting people. Be part of it. Let's have them be part of our life. Let's be part of their life. That's the only way we can reach people for Christ, is to be part. Is to reach out, be a good neighbor to them. You start seeing us helping out where we can with them. That just plants a seed. That takes that one seed, just plant it. It's going to stop. It's going to be like a rototiller in their heart. When we start reaching out and helping out with them, it's kind of like the times on a rototiller, just digging in, softening that dirt, getting it all ready, mixing in the soil amendments. We're helping like the farmers would do back in the days. We'd all start helping each other out, and plowing and tilling. Man, we need to get back to those days. Start tilling up the soil in people's hearts. Start planting a crop. Be a good neighbor. Back in the days, they used to, it was kind of funny because we're talking about neighboring, being a good neighbor type thing. Is when my wife and I were out in Arkansas on vacation, like the first year out there or something like that, I thought she was going to get shot because she was just running right around the back door to her grandparents' place. And you're going to get shot doing that. We were living in Pomona at the time, so that kind of gives you the idea between the difference of neighbors. Some neighbors you got to kind of duck, and we've had good neighbors out there though too. But there was another time we were out there. I was working on my car and all that. The neighbor here, the neighbor, their grandpa, her grandparents, was hey, he's about a younger guy, about my age. It surprised me. And I said, Dad, you don't happen to have like a 5/16 wrench or something, doesn't it? Change the oil. He goes, hey, whatever tools you need, they're in this toolbox here. And he had the Snap-on toolbox about that thing full of tools. So I'm looking at this thing and thinking, this guy's an awfully trusting soul, because he said he had to go run in town and get something. He said, whatever you need, just help yourself to it, put it back in there and clean them off, put them back when you're done. Here's $10,000 worth of tools. But hey, he saw a need and opportunity to help him around there. But that's down in the Bible Belt, down there in Arkansas. They knew about the idea of being neighborly. And just a little interesting fun fact. We were talking about Mr. Rogers earlier. Fred Rogers, also known as Mr. Rogers, had been on the air for 33 years. He's introduced a lot of people, introduced a lot of new neighbors to the air, people out to the world where he was broadcast. And Diego Mesa was saying he stopped counting at 500 when he tried to look it up online. I tried to look it up online too, and I thought it'd be weird just like he was doing. I couldn't find exactly how many he had, but Diego Mesa mentioned that he stopped counting at 500. So he had over 500 people he introduced. You got a gnat or something flying around you?
Fly.
I thought maybe you had the Holy Spirit on you, because I seen her like this, and I thought maybe it could be like one of these Pentecostal churches and snake charm. We're not going to do the snake stuff here at this church. No, I'm not going to do one of those churches. But here's 500 new people, new neighbors. Can we reach out and introduce ourselves to at least a couple of neighbors? Just know your neighbor. You don't have to go meet them. Just write the name down in the mailbox. And you see on their mailbox. Maybe you're at the gym. Well, getting weird. Good, David was saying. Trying to see if they tell me what their name is. Well, then we're gonna just think about that. Next week I'm gonna keep preaching. Try a neat article I'm gonna do 10 ways to love your neighbor. So with that, we're gonna go to the invitation. We're gonna go to our communion.